Hello, everyone. I'm Melody. I'm your host, and today we are talking about book promotion and the technology that can help you sell more books. As I said, I'm Melody Ann from Author Nation. Author Nation is a community of authors that help people go from idea to published and promoted. So if you are on your author journey or you have an idea for a book, join us. You can get some awesome resources at authornation.online. You can jump there and get those resources. I want to introduce you to our guest today. Evan Gao is the indie developer of Story Origin, a marketing tool and community of authors that work together to find reviewers, build mailing lists, increase sales, and stay on top of deadlines. Please welcome Evan. Hey, Evan, how are you today?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm really great. So I'm so curious about the origin of Story Origin. That's a mouthful, because I know that you actually started out in economics or finance. You've done a stint in banking. So tell me, so you didn't start in computer science.
No. I majored in finance and economics and worked in finance for several years, but got interested in writing back in high school. And then I got interested in entrepreneurship in college, but was sort of already on track to pursue that finance career. And then after a few years, I was ready to leave, and I really wanted to build something myself, and I wanted to combine that interest for tech and entrepreneurship with my interest in writing as well. And so that's how I arrived at, building tools for writers. And I also wanted to get back into writing at the same time, but quickly Story Origin just took over 100% of my time. So I didn't really get back into writing the way that I wanted to.
I think that happens with a lot of people who are like, okay, I'll start this writing like business so that I can write. And then you realize that the business takes over and writing still sits in second place. So originally you planned on being a banker or an analyst?
Yes. Yeah. So my first job out of college was being an investment banking analyst up in New York. And then, I worked for a private equity fund where we would, evaluate and acquire companies. And one of the verticals that we looked at was, tech and information services. And so that I joined them, with that interest in entrepreneurship, with the idea of, learning, okay, what makes a good business, and then, how can I use that to, use what I learned there to start my own as well. But I really came at things kind of backwards, because I started in investment banking, looking at doing restructuring. So we were looking at companies that were potentially filing Chapter 11 bankruptcy. So sort of at the end of the life cycle for those companies, and then went to growth private equity, which are not large businesses, but businesses that are well established. They make plenty of money, have quite a few employees, and then down to starting Story Origin, which is me at home typing on my laptop by myself.
Yeah. Well, at least you know how not to go bankrupt, right?
Yeah.
You have all the experience of what not to do to go bankrupt because you've seen so many of them, right? So where did the idea of Story Origin come from?
Yeah, so like I was saying, I got interested in tech and then combining that with writing. So wanted to build tools for writers, stuff that I thought that I might use as well. So I went and I talked to a bunch of authors, and I said, like, what tools are you using? And I heard, okay, so I use this tool for building my mailing list. I use this other tool for finding reviewers. I use this other tool for creating universal book links. I use some combination of Facebook groups and Google Forms to arrange newsletter swaps with other authors. And then, I might use some combo of Word and Excel and email to manage beta copies, audiobook promo codes, et cetera, right? So I was like, whoa, okay, this sounds like a lot. There's a lot of context switching. You have like 5 different logins to remember, like 8 different spreadsheets you're updating. How can I make this easier? So that's when I decided to build Story Origin as sort of a one-stop shop to do everything that you need as an author.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. So did you have to learn how to code then? Like, where did you learn to code?
Yeah, so I started to learn to program back when I was in college, just in my free time, and then continued that all through while I was working as well, just in the free time. And then when I left my previous role, there was a specific tech stack that I wanted to use to build Story Origin. So at that point, I wasn't learning how to program, but I was learning a specific tech stack that I wanted to use to build Story Origin. Um,
Okay.
and so that was, yeah, that was all sort of self motivated.
Right. Okay. Awesome. So if you're looking for some awesome tech to help sell more books, you can find it at storyoriginapp.com. Evan, tell us about Story Origin. I mean, you did kind of say, email and this and that, but give us a nice, like that 1 minute. What can Story Origin do for authors?
So I think if you're an author just starting out, you don't really have an audience. A lot of those authors, what they're coming to Story Origin for is to put up a reader magnet. That's usually a short story that you give away for free when someone signs up to your mailing list. And so Story Origin handles, creating that landing page for you, delivering that file to the readers, whatever their preferred reading device is, and handles any technical support that any readers might have, trouble with something. So that's what most authors who are just starting out come to Story Origin for is putting up that reader magnet and getting started with building their mailing list. And then once once you're getting a little bit farther along, you might be coming to Story Origin to do more cross promotions like newsletter swaps. You've already have several books published. You're putting up a universal book link to send people to the correct Amazon storefront for your book, right? Because Amazon's got 13 different storefronts: Amazon.com, .co.uk, .com.au, etc. And so that's a pain. And so you create a universal book link, and then you arrange, newsletter swaps where you're cross promoting your books with other authors. You're promoting their books, and that is just a great way to gain more visibility and drive more traffic to your books where you're selling them.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, it's hard to know which one to delve into first. Um, so let's just do a list. So, email marketing,
Hmm.
cross promotions,
Hmm.
finding beta readers.
Yeah. So Story Origin, I guess the way that you can look at it is sort of the whole full life cycle of everything you need to do sort of on the business and marketing side of being an author, right? So it can start with, goal trackers. So tracking your daily word count as you're writing the book. And then once you've got the manuscript done and you're ready to start getting feedback on it, then you can use Story Origin to put up a beta copy and start streamlining that process to get feedback from readers. Now you've got your feedback done. You've got a final, you've got your final manuscript. You put that up as a review copy on Story Origin pre-publication to start soliciting people to see if they want to become early reviewers of that book, where they get the book ahead of publication, and then on publication date, they're already ready to go to post the review wherever you've got it listed.
Yeah.
And then from there, you'd create a universal book link once it's on sale. And then all sort of wrapped around that is building a mailing list and building an audience and sort of taking that audience with you along through that publishing journey with you as well.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So how do you decide like, as you were building this, how did you decide what to build and when? Like, how did that come about?
So it's kind of, I'm always weighing basically two things.
Hmm.
How much value will this feature provide, and how many authors will it help, right? I could build, some feature that would help a very minuscule number of authors, like a ton. Or I could build, some feature which is hugely valuable to a lot of authors, but and so that's where I sort of try to, prioritize the features. And then also just there's a lot of cross promotional aspects to Story Origin as well. And so that was an early part of the story with Story Origin, right? Is helping authors connect with one another.
Yeah.
And that also just helps Story Origin grow more quickly too, right? Because other authors are sort of working with each other on the platform.
Yeah. And that was something I was going to ask you about, because I also have a community for authors, little different. But for me, community is really important. So you put tech and community together. And why
Yeah.
was that important to you?
So, so, uh, you know, Story Origin being, a large part of it is sort of the cross promotion stuff on Story Origin as well. And it's just something that authors were already doing, but they were like trying to do it on their own websites, or they were, like I was saying before, like setting up Google Forms and arranging stuff in Facebook groups, but you don't have any transparency there, right? When you're doing that kind of thing, you can't like go and see, okay, when this person said they were going to do cross promotions with these other authors in these Facebook groups, like, did they actually uphold their end of their bargain when they said that they were going to do that stuff? So it's just completely non-transparent. So Story Origin brought a lot of transparency to those communities, where when I set up a newsletter swap with you, you set one up with me, you can go and you can see how many clicks have I sent to other past newsletters or other books that I've agreed to promote in my newsletter. And if I put them up, you can see the archive links to my newsletters as well. So you can see, how do I design my newsletter? Like, where is your book probably going to go in that layout, right? So that we can both trust each other more, because that was something that the community was really, there wasn't sort of much transparency or trust. It was more just really, kind of hoping.
Right. And what can you do? You can say, right, so send me a copy, after it goes out to subscribers, forward a copy to me.
Right.
But then you're keeping track of all that as well. You've got this list, and you've got this, I don't know, this Excel spreadsheet, and you're like listing it out and checking it off when you've received them. And that takes up a lot of time. Yep. So I'd love to dig in, because I know you have learned so much about book marketing, building this and talking to authors and working with authors. And I know you're going to apply it at some point when you write your book too, because I'm sure it's still coming. But let's talk about reader magnets and emails. So first off, why have an email list? Like, why? I'm selling a book. Let's just say I'm selling a book. Why do I want to put them on my email list if what I want is for them to buy a book?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. Why have a mailing list, right? You want to have a mailing list because if you sort of look at the marketing landscape nowadays, you can advertise your book by, going on, different, social media websites or Amazon. And the way that those systems work is that you're essentially bidding for impressions. And as more authors join those platforms, generally speaking, those bids increase. So it becomes more and more expensive to reach those audiences. And that will just happen over time because they're all built on bidding. And then if you look at, trying to get reviews on products, it's just, people don't tend to review products that frequently. So it's difficult, when you're just sort of an internet stranger, for them to feel like, oh, I'm helping this person out, right? When they don't know you. And so having an email list sort of helps solve those problems, because when you build an email list, when you release book 2, book 3, book 4, etc. in a series, you don't need to go back to those advertising platforms every time to sell those books, because you actually have your audience on your mailing list, and you can just say, hey, book 2 is released. Like, you can go buy it now, right? You don't need to try and let them know through some other means, which is paid, right? It's free. And so the other part is, you're also establishing a rapport with your audience when you do that. So when someone reads your book and they see newsletters from you, and you say, hey, if you've read my book, I'd love it if you could get a review, and they've seen a picture of you, they've, read your stories about whatever happened with you and your dog this week or whatever, right? They're just generally much more inclined to actually go and leave a review, because they understand you're a human, not just like some robot, right? Especially nowadays with like AI writing. Maybe it is actually just written by a robot, but no, you're a human, right? So
yeah, and I'm going to add two things I'm going to add to that. One, even if you just have one book and you have a coaching program behind it, or a product or a service or something behind it, then if all you do is sell the book and the person walks away and there's no relationship built, you're not going to sell any of those behind the scenes things. And the other thing I'm going to add is what you alluded to earlier is cross promotion. So if you go to an author and say, hey, why don't you put my book on your email list or out to your following, but I don't have an email list. So if you build up an email list, even if they're just selling that one book, if you want to sell that book to 10 other authors' email lists up to 10,000, let's say they each have 1,000, 10,000 new readers, you can do that if you have the email list, right? Because there's, as you say, there's that that word's not going to come out. You're working together. There's a cross promotion there, right? And so having an email list gives you a whole bunch of other options for getting in front of new audiences. So I was just going to add that. So what are some of the best reader magnets you've ever seen?
So generally what I recommend for reader magnet for fiction authors anyway would be a 10 to 20,000 word short story prequel to your book or your series. Following the same characters as you would have in book one, right? Same genre as you would have in book one. Sometimes I've seen authors where they write, a prequel, which might be like a steamy romance, and then book one is a clean romance. Like this is, you want to make sure that they're in the same genre, and following the same characters, because that is going to be, it's like essentially like a sample, right? Like when you're going and you're sampling, an ice cream or something, right? You want more of that. And so that reader magnet should act as a good sort of trial run for you as an author or your series.
Yeah.
If you are, and if you don't have, a story or something like that would work, where you could write like a prequel with the same character or something like that. These are not hard and fast rules, purely recommendations. Anything will really work. It could be, an anthology of stories that's in a completely different universe, with completely different characters. And you're simply saying, hey, you can go check out book one after that. What I recommend, regardless of what you use as a reader magnet, put a sample of your follow-up to that reader magnet at the end, right? So they read through your anthology or your short story or what have you, and then they read into chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3 of book one. And then they're much more likely to purchase book one because they've already sort of gotten hooked into that follow-up story there, right?
Yeah.
This is something that authors practice all of the time when it comes to their books on Amazon or, on retailers, but then they forget to do so when it's their reader magnet and they're, they don't have it up on a retailer or something like that. So I don't know. It's funny, but that's one thing I always recommend to authors is not to forget. And then, for a nonfiction author, something like a guide or companion to, your book is usually something that nonfiction authors will do. But yeah, it's super variable when it comes to nonfiction because there's so many different things out there.
Yeah, no, that's great. No, so now we have the reader magnet, fiction or nonfiction, something that leads into the story or a companion, so they'll want the book. And now we have an email list. And what I hear authors say is, well, now what do? I need content. Do I have to email them all the time with something to say, right? So what are some of the best content ideas you've come across for both fiction and nonfiction authors?
There's basically two pieces to a newsletter. The way that I usually frame them is it's the building rapport and then delivering value. And so building rapport for that, it's usually just like something that happened this week. And that can be like, it can be whatever it, I accidentally one time bought, I was doing online grocery shopping and I thought I was buying a bottle of soy sauce because the product image was a bottle of soy sauce, and didn't pay attention to how much it was going to cost me, because when it arrived, it was a 12-pack of soy sauce. So my newsletter was me holding up 12 bottles of soy sauce, being like, I bought way too much soy sauce. Has this ever happened to you? Just like buying stuff off the internet. You can't ever really, be sure what you're gonna get. And so other people, replied back with like, oh, I did the same thing. And so it can really be, anything. It's usually, or like it snowed outside recently. Here's a picture of me like in the snow, right? It doesn't need to be necessarily like funny or entertaining. It can just be a picture of me at an aquarium, right? Like, so that's what I'll usually put in my newsletters, just like something from my personal life.
Yes.
That's like just recent news. And then so that's sort of the building rapport part. The delivering value part, for my newsletter, because I build software, it tends to be like, here's the software updates I've made. For authors, though, that's where I think that cross promotion actually becomes extremely valuable to you, because when you are putting, oh, here's some books you can get for free, or here's some other reads that look really enticing that are also in the same genre, then you become a source of recommendations for readers, and readers are always sort of looking for what are they going to get into next. And so when you become a source of recommendations for them, then that gives them the incentive to open and click things in your newsletter, because they're saying, what am I going to read this week? Oh, here's a newsletter from Evan. Oh, what's he talking about this week?
Yeah.
And so that value is what provides the impetus for them to open and click on your email. And then sharing that, story from what's going on in your personal life is how you build rapport with them, and establish a real relationship with your audience. And, people that actually have a real relationship with you are going to be more likely to buy the follow-up books in your series, or leave reviews for you, or become a beta reader for you, right?
Yeah, exactly. So my next email is going to start with my table full of hands of bananas, because I think I'm ordering, 5 bananas, 1 hand, and really I'm ordering 5 hands of bananas, and now I have 25 bananas. That's a lot of banana breads. That's going to be my next email, just so we all know.
Yes, and the follow-up newsletter to that should be the world's largest loaf of banana bread.
Banana bread, exactly. So
I now have 300 banana bread muffins.
Yes. Who would like one?
Yeah,
exactly. So now I have I have a reader magnet. I have an email list. I'm starting to add people. How am I adding people, by the way?
So it's when people come to that reader magnet landing page on StoryOrigin, that when you set up a newsletter swap or you join a group promotion, you are promoting, you choose what landing page you want to promote. So you could be promoting a reader magnet, or you could be promoting a universal book link, or you could be promoting a review copy. Depends on what your goals are, right? Are you trying to build your mailing list? Are you trying to find reviewers, or are you trying to increase sales at that point in time? For most authors, I recommend focus on building your mailing list until you're at least up to like 700, 800, 900, 1,000 subscribers, and then worry about the other stuff later. And those numbers are kind of different. Depends on your genre, right? Some genres grow a little bit slower, so you might focus on reviews sooner or something like that. But generally speaking, that's sort of my guideline. And so you are joining group promos and newsletter swaps. That's promoting that reader magnet landing page you have on StoryOrigin. When someone clicks on that page and they say, oh yeah, I want that book, they put in their name, their email address, and then that info is automatically sent to your email service provider if you've integrated StoryOrigin with one of the 9 different email service providers that StoryOrigin integrates with. Otherwise, you can always just download a CSV of the signups that you get to your mailing list. And then that contact info is, it's, most of the time it's sent automatically to your MailChimp or MailerLite mailing list or whatever have you.
Yeah, ConvertKit.
Right.
And I can put that landing page out on social media. I can put it on my website. So I can put this everywhere, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Okay. So it's not just in Story Origin. It can go
Right.
anywhere. All right. Perfect. And so now I've built up an email list. Let's say, starting out, I only have 100, but I mean, at least that's a start. I go into Story Origin. I'm looking for cross promotion. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So you can get started doing cross promotions on Story Origin even if you have 0 subscribers. You can apply and request newsletter swaps or to join group promos even if you have 0 subscribers, because like I was saying before, one of those things that authors that are doing is they're looking to provide value to their readers by having stuff that they can mention to their readers. Hey, check out these other books, right? So you might find that an author with 200, 300, 500, 1,000 people on their mailing list will be willing to mention you in their newsletter, or mention your book in their newsletter, because they need that content, because that's what provides value for their readers. So even if you've got 0 subscribers, those authors are still looking for, what can I share with my readers this week? And a lot of those authors as well got started when they had 0 subscribers on their mailing list, and there were people who were nice enough to mention them, and so now they're sort of lending a helping hand up. You would come to Story Origin, you'd hit browse newsletter swaps, and you can enter tags for whatever genres you write in. So Story Origin uses a tagging system, so you can combine things like romance and sci-fi, or fantasy, epic. You can add these tags so you can find exactly who you want to swap newsletter mentions with. And then you can do the same thing when you're looking for upcoming group promos. And when you're doing that, you can there are different types of group promos. So giveaways would be for promoting your reader magnets, sales would be for promoting your universal book links, or reviews would be for promoting your review copies, etc. So Story Origin is super flexible when it comes to what is your goal. Let us help you find a way to cross promote your books to meet your goals.
Yeah. And I knew that about you, because who turned me on to Story Origin was Martin Crosby. And he loved you guys, how flexible you were. He said to me, you've got to go check him out, right? So it was because you were so flexible, right? You worked with book promotions. You were really looking to support authors in the ways that they needed the support, right?
Right.
So what are some of the kind of interesting cross promotions that you've seen?
You can set up cross promotions for kind of however you want to. And maybe it makes sense to also kind of step back and just explain what newsletter swaps and group promos are for people that might not be familiar with the term. So a newsletter swap would be a direct one-to-one cross promotion, where I'm promoting one of your books in one of my newsletters, and you promote one of my books in one of your newsletters. And then a group promo would be where you, me, and let's say 20 other authors, we all list our books on a single landing page, and then we all drive our traffic to that single landing page. And so they'll see, all 20 of our books there, right? And so the readers can then go and click on whatever books they're interested in from that group promo. So, sometimes authors, and anyone can organize a group promo. So sometimes authors will organize a group promo around like specific holidays, like it's Halloween, let's have a Halloween horror group promotion, right? Or, during Christmas time, it's kind of interesting. Like you wouldn't necessarily expect it, but people will have group promos for Christmas themed books, and it will still have Christmas themed, sci-fi fantasy stuff, right? Which a lot of people don't see that commonly. But I've become aware of many, many different, all of the genres of books that exist.
So we could take World Health Day and say
Mhm.
how, I could, if I'm in Story Origin, I could take World Health Day. And so I could put out, there must be some kind of messaging where I put out a message saying, I'm looking for books that somehow fit into World Health Day, whether it's fiction or nonfiction. And let's create a landing page, and then let's send that out for World Health Day. And so would that work?
Yeah, so when you go and you create a group promo, you could give it a title like, World Health Day month or something, right? Like generally I recommend group promos, you want them to last for about a month, because
Okay.
everyone's going to be promoting it in their own newsletters, and everyone's going to have their newsletters scheduled for different times of the month. So I generally recommend them being open for about a month.
Yeah.
And so it might be like, let's focus on health in this group promo. And so on Story Origin, when other authors are looking at the list of upcoming group promos, and they'll search by tags like nonfiction or health, right, or lifestyle, right, those kind of things, they'd see that one and they'd be like, oh, okay, I have a book that's a good fit for this group promo, let me put that in there. And then authors as well can create saved filters for group promos as well.
Mhm.
So when a new group promo that matches their saved tags, when a new one is created, Story Origin will send them an email. Hey, someone just created a group promo that matches your saved tags. Why don't you go check it out and see if it's something that you would want to apply to?
Nice. Really nice. Excellent. Thank you. And we do have a question. The Holistic Tooth Fairy has been asking about ActiveCampaign integration just before we move away from email. So you have 9 of them.
Yes.
Is ActiveCampaign in the list?
Yeah. So ActiveCampaign, Aweber, ConvertKit. I probably cannot. But all of the major ones that you can think of, for the most part, are integrated on Story Origin. And then, no features on Story Origin strictly require an integration. It's always an optional thing. So all of the features on Story Origin work regardless of whether or not you have your email service provider integrated. And like I said, if you're getting signups to your Reader Magnet and you're using some other, less well-known email service provider, you can always download a CSV of those signups from Story Origin and just manually upload that list to your email service provider.
Perfect. Thank you. So that was a lot about email. Thank you so much. I want to point out that Story Origin has an email guide on their website. So storyoriginapp.com, in their blog, email marketing guide. I have the link on the screen, but I also have the link in the description. You'll find the link for Story Origin for a guide for emailing. And another guide. So we have a couple of guides in there. Evan has given us a few links with some awesome, I've looked at them, awesome guides. So check out the description, find the guides, check them out, especially this email one. I was really impressed. I think every author should have an email list. And we'll leave it there. And I want to ask you about reviews. Let's talk about reviews. So many authors want reviews. How do we get reviews? And how does Story Origin help us get reviews?
Yeah. So I would say that it actually starts with building the email list first. And then what you can do on Story Origin is put up a review copy. And there are a few ways that you can promote that review copy, right? So first is sending it out to the mailing list that you've built, right? With Story Origin or without Story Origin, promoting, let's say you're writing, let's say you're a brand new author, right? You don't have book 1 published yet, but you've written a Reader Magnet, right? So you've started to build a mailing list before even publishing book 1.
Mm-hmm.
So you've started building that mailing list. Let's say you get up to a couple hundred people or something like that. And then before book 1 is published, you can upload it to Story Origin and solicit people to say, hey, you're on my mailing list, you want to get book 1 for free, you can go and request it here. And then when someone requests that review copy from you on Story Origin, they would say where they're planning to leave a review: Amazon, Goodreads, BookBub, whatever other retailers you have it listed at. And then if they are going to leave a review on Amazon, Goodreads, or BookBub, they would also leave the link to their reviewer profile, because those platforms have reviewer profiles. So you can see when someone requests it from you, okay, I can go to their Amazon reviewer profile and it looks like, oh, they've reviewed all these other books that are also in my genre. This seems like something that they would like. So I'll go ahead and approve them. Story Origin leaves you in the driver's seat. There are other review platforms out there where essentially they decide whether or not someone gets a review copy from you. In Story Origin, you're in the driver's seat about who gets that copy, so you can approve or decline those. And the readers are only notified if they get approved. So Story Origin will send them an email saying, hey, you can go download the book now. And the other thing that Story Origin gives you as well is when that person has applied, besides being able to go see their reviewer profile links at the various review platforms, you can also see how many review copies they've been approved for through Story Origin and how many of those they've completed. So what percentage, they've been approved for 20 review copies and they've completed 19 of them. Well, I can be relatively sure that if I give them a copy, they're actually going to read it and leave a review. And so Story Origin helps you with that. So again, in terms of how to promote that review copy, the first and best place is always going to be your own audience, your mailing list, right? And then the other thing that you can do is you can always cross-promote it through group promos and newsletter swaps on Story Origin as well. Newsletter swaps actually are pretty effective for helping to build your review team. And then lastly, you can also choose to make that review copy publicly listed on Story Origin. So there is a directory of review copies, and readers can go and check out the new review copies that are posted to that directory. And so you can choose to optionally list your review copy there. Some authors do want to do that because they want to get new reviewers, and some authors, they like to keep their review teams private, and so they only ever really send the link to their review copy out to their small review team. That's why it's optional to you. But so you can list it in that directory there, and then people can still apply for the review copy. And when you publicly list it on Story Origin, you're still in control of who actually gets approved for that review copy. You still choose who you want to approve or decline. Listing it there just puts it in that directory.
Yeah. So I just want to make sure I understand this. When somebody wants to review my book, do they need to have an account with Story Origin? Somehow they sign up, or there's some kind of cookie that recognizes them. And then, so if they've come previously and they've been a reviewer for a couple of books, then that if you give them a book, they'll actually make the review, versus somebody who comes and they've asked to be reviewed 10 books and they've finished one, then probably giving that person a book isn't going to get a review. Is that what I'm just making sure I understood you correctly?
Yeah, that's right. So when they request a review copy from you on Story Origin, they'll need a free account. And on the reader side, probably a lot of your readers will already have Story Origin accounts because they'll have gotten a reader magnet from you or a review copy from you, or they've requested those from some other author. And so a lot of readers already have Story Origin accounts. And so there's no extra step for them there. But if they do happen to be completely new to Story Origin, then all they need to do is enter their name and email address, and Story Origin sends them a login link. So they don't even need to come up with a password. The password is they get a new unique login just sent to their email address, right? So it's just a one-time password kind of thing, and that keeps it super simple for readers.
Got it.
And so yeah, it takes like 10 seconds to set up an account on Story Origin. And then they would just mark where they plan to leave a review. And so yeah, if they plan to leave a review on Amazon or whatever, then they would leave the link to their Amazon reviewer profile, and then Story Origin would save that information. So if they apply for review copies later, they don't need to re-enter it or anything, and then Story Origin can track on that account, okay, this person has read 20 review copies, how many have they actually completed the process for?
Yeah, that's excellent. So I can be on Story Origin as an author or a reader. So if I'm an avid reader and I want to get free books and I'm willing to write reviews for them, then I can go on Story Origin and find people who are looking for reviewers, I can read the books and review them. And then that also benefits your authors. That's a really nice, and that also expands your community to not just have authors, but also readers. And do they get to, do you have a Facebook group? Is that
there is a Story Origin authors Facebook group, which
Okay.
is just for the authors.
Just
really.
for authors? Okay. Got it. I just wanted to see how the community all worked together. That's really cool. Have we missed anything that you want to just mention?
No, I mean, we've covered quite a few things, so there's nothing in particular.
We have, and I think we could talk on about a whole bunch of different things, because that's not all Story Origin does. It does a lot more than that. I think we could talk for an hour on more stuff.
Right.
But you've really given us some amazing ideas on how to market and how that works with Story Origin. What's next for Story Origin?
I always play the major upcoming features close to the vest because I'm
Do you?
never sure exactly when I'm gonna be able to release them.
Yeah, fair.
So, and I don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. So,
Exactly.
Recently I've been focusing a lot on educational stuff, and so I've written up some case studies and record some case studies with authors about how did they build their mailing lists, how did they
Right.
find reviewers, do all that stuff. And so when you go on the Story Origin tutorials tab, you'll see those case studies, you'll see the guides that you put the links up for, and you'll find video tutorials of how to use all of those features as well. But that educational stuff is what I'd been focusing on most recently, and now I'm sort of turning my attention back to working on new features again.
Yeah, and that makes perfect sense, because you build this amazing thing, but you want to make sure people know what it does, how to use it, and feel confident with the technology, right? There's no point in continuing to build and build and build features without bringing on the education people need to use them well and use them to succeed, because ultimately that's what you want. You want authors to succeed. So
Absolutely.
that makes perfect sense to me. Where can authors find you?
StoryOriginApp.com. And if anyone wants to get in contact with me personally as well, you can scroll to the bottom of StoryOriginApp.com, on the homepage, and my email address is right there. Or you can hit the contact link in the footer of the page, and you'll see my face, my email address. My inbox is totally open, and people are like, how, why? But I'm always super open with people, because that's how I get a lot of feedback from authors of oh, what are authors struggling with, right? And if I get so many emails about anything in particular, then I go, okay, that's that's where I'm going to go focus next.
Yeah, exactly. That's perfect. Thank you so much, Evan, for joining me today. Thank you so much for talking about Story Origin, and also just talking about book marketing and giving people such amazing ideas. If you don't have an email list, go get an email list. Honestly, it's one of the best things you can do as an author for yourself, is get an email list. There's so many opportunities for you if you do that, and Story Origin makes that really easy for you. Thank you again, Evan.
Thanks for having me on.
And thank you for joining us today. So we are here to help you go from idea to published to promoted. So join the community. We are a group of like-minded individuals. AuthorNation.community is where you will find us. Next week, we are going to be talking to Marla Press, dealing with that debilitating doubt that so many authors have, and dealing with that so that you can make a greater impact in the world. Join us then.